to be talking about some really messed up situations and some situations with abuse. So if you have any issues with that, you might want to stop here. This is your warning. And if you're ready to go, then let's get into the video. Thanks. Hey, hi, hello. Welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm Lark of the Dark. And this is part 2 of the Bridgewater Triangle series on this channel. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, I highly suggest you stop right here and go and give it a watch so that you have a little more context for what we're talking about. And if you've already watched part 1, I'm so glad to see you again. Tonight we're going to dive into the strange and disturbing accounts that have come out of the Bridgewater Triangle. These accounts include... what do they include? They include UFO sightings, cryptids, ghosts, Satanic Cult Activity, and is also believed to be a paranormal portal. So, grab your biggest cup of your hottest tea and let's get into it. The base of the stories that I'm about to share come from a 2013 documentary suitably titled The Bridgewater Triangle, and I'm gonna have a link below. I highly recommend giving it a watch for even more on the subject, because I'm gonna give this to you in a bow. And don't worry, your girl's been spending some time, way too much time and energy probably, on researching the subject like the last 2 weeks. Let's recap really quick. What is the Bridgewater Triangle? It was given its name by cryptozoologist Loren Coleman in his 1983 published book, Mysterious America. And in this book, he goes on to describe a 200 square mile area in southeastern Massachusetts with an extended history of strange paranormal and often really sinister activity. According to Loren, the towns at the 3 points of this triangle are Abington at the north, Freetown at the southeast, and Rehoboth at the southwest. So what caused all of this wildness here? As mentioned in part 1, it's believed that the energy of this land came about as a culmination of the energy that was left over from this brutal war between Native Americans and English colonists back in 1675. And many believe that after this war, the Native Americans also cursed the land. Where are we gonna start? Let's start at a place called Hockomock Swamp. And that's a fun word to say, right? Hockomock. Makes me want to hug a loogie. Hockomock Swamp. Hockomock Swamp. Now, Hockomock is the Algonquin term that means place where spirits dwell. So, just to kind of clear things up, the Algonquin tribe is a big tribe in the northeast, and it is comprised of a bunch of other tribes. So when we talk about the oh my gosh, see, I'm already doing it. So when we talk about the Wampanoag tribe, they are a part of a bigger tribe that is the Algonquin tribe. Okay, so Hockomock Swamp, Algonquin term, means place where spirits dwell. And it was named that before all of this took place. So it's likely that this land already had something to it, whether it was from their traditions, the fact that it was a burial ground. It's a 5,000-acre swamp and was a battlefield during King Philip's War in 1675 to 1676. It was used as a fortress by the Wampanoag against the invasion by the English colonists. So this land was also used for hunting and as, like I said, a sacred burial ground. Have you watched anything like Pet Sematary, anything, you know you don't mess with a sacred burial ground. You just don't do it. It's dumb. Why would you mess with it? Just don't. So Hockomock, interestingly enough, is sometimes referred to as Hobomok, which Hobomok is the chief deity of death and disease for the Wampanoag. They both worshipped and feared this deity So, like, when we talk about 1675, like, that's such a drop in the bucket compared to how long these people lived on this land and used this land and just inhabited it. Like, this was their home. Puts a lot into perspective for myself personally. Now, in Hockomock Swamp, here's where we get into the paranormal stuff. Anawan Rock is also in Hockomock Swamp, and Anawan Rock is where Chief Anawan surrendered to church. That's where the belt was supposedly given to church. So there's reports been said of seeing a spirit dancing on this rock. During this documentary, there is a point where a gentleman is being interviewed about Anawan Rock, and in the conversation, this gentleman says, the wampum belt, like, Philip gave this to Anawan, and church took this belt, and it's believed that the hauntings are gonna happen until the wampum belt is returned. And as the guy is saying this, like, as he's saying the last sentence, the hauntings will happen until the wampum belt is returned, he, like, said it like, the hauntings will happen until the wampum belt is returned. Like, he was, like, twitching weird. And all of a sudden, the lights, the interview lights, went out. And they got them back on. And they're like, whoa, like, those went out right when you said that. And he was like, oh, yeah, I guess that is kind of weird. And I'm like, yo, you were acting weird as hell before you even said that. What do you mean? Oh, yeah, I just thought it was kind of weird. Like, and then he goes on to say, we hear your message. If I could, I would return it. And the interview lights go out again. Now, if that doesn't say something, I mean, that to me is a clear sign from the ancestors that that could be a big point of contention still to this day. Unfortunately, the whereabouts of the wampum belt at this point are unknown. Through the wars and everything else, where the colonists began to turn on themselves in history, it got lost. So, these hauntings are probably going to go on for a very long time. The cryptid sightings here that are claimed are off the charts. Bigfoot. Yeah, people said they've seen Bigfoot here. We're going to get into that. Thunderbird. Now, what's a thunderbird? It's basically like a pterodactyl-like bird with a wingspan between 8 to 12 feet long. Now, like, I don't know about you, birds don't scare me as much, but there are a lot of people who freak out with birds. Like, so imagine that you have this fear of birds and you see a freaking 12-foot wingspan pterodactyl thing flying through the air. Like, no freaking thank you. I mean, I get scared enough when I let my dogs out and see the hawks flying around, and I'm like, oh, my babies. Like, oh. In 1970, a local police and hunters believed that they were hunting a large bear. But here's the thing about this bear. It didn't just run on all fours. No. Because that would be too normal. This bear was also known to run upright on two legs. Like, did that not ring any bells to anyone? Why would a bear be running on two legs? And the reports that came in were just more and more bizarre. A gentleman named Carlston Wood was interviewed about something that he and his friends had seen as kids. So when they were kids, they used to play in the swamp, and in the winter, when it was all frozen over, they would run and they would go out exploring, and they'd go as far as they could because, like, you don't have this swampy, like, marsh to keep you from going wherever you want to go. Honestly, it sounds like a fun time to me. So they're running, they're going as far as they can, and all of a sudden one of the kids in their group screams at the top of his lungs. And all the kids turn around, and the thing this kid was screaming at was what he thought was a huge, hairy man. And all the kids saw it, and they said he heard in his head mentally this thought like projected into his head that said, turn around. You need to turn around and see. And like, have you ever gotten those thoughts before where you just feel like you're getting this like, I don't know, like you're getting this mental message from somewhere? This is what he was getting. So he turned around and he saw what appeared to be a freaking Sasquatch. It had long brown hair all over its body, and it was across the river from them. And all they could really see, though, for the most part, was from the waist up, and it was walking across the river, and then it just disappeared. Another gentleman that was in the swamp at night hunting, I don't know, I mean, it must be prime hunting grounds, obviously, still, right? It was good enough for the Wampanoag. It's probably good enough for any other hunter. So, this gentleman, Josh, was out there, and he was in his boat in the swamp, and he said that something was following him along the shoreline. It's at nighttime, it's dark, and he heard something rustling through the bushes, and it was big. He could tell just by the way that it sounded as it was moving through. He took the boat down this other small creek, and it was still following him. And the thing that really freaked him out is that he knew that it wasn't human. It was big, but he knew it wasn't human. He knew it wasn't a deer because he could smell it. And it smelled like a big, musty, dirty skunk. But skunks are not that big. And he is positive to this day that he was being followed by a Bigfoot. Me personally, like, I think the Bigfoot stuff is interesting. I personally think that Bigfoot and like Yetis, some of those kinds of creatures, like especially, a lot of cryptids, I think personally that they might actually exist on another dimensional plane, but it's often that that dimension and our dimension overlap, and that is when we hear people seeing these things. I don't know. I believe that there are so many dimensions, like where we're living right now. There could literally be someone or just other beings. Like, I mean, ghosts too, right? Like, do I sound crazy? Like, they're all existing on these different dimensions, and sometimes the dimensions are so close or the veil is so thin that they do happen to just merge and muddy in a little bit, and you see glimpses of things or you hear glimpses of things, but for the most part we kind of just live our lives like two ships in the night. What do you think about that? Is that crazy? Like, even when I was a little kid, I used to think that what I saw through my eyes is maybe not necessarily what is here. Like, at this desk, for instance, perhaps it's an old dingy desk. It's not this beautiful white desk that I see, and maybe there are cobwebs everywhere. What I see is not reality. Reality is something else. Yeah, sorry. Anyway, it's also reported that enormous snakes have been seen in the swamp. Large cats that are not native to the area, and giant bloodthirsty dogs. There is another creature that I had not heard of until I started looking up all of this stuff on this area, and that creature is called a pukwudgie. Now, doesn't that sound like a cute little like creature from Star Wars? Like, oh, it's a pukwudgie. Oh, so cute. That's how it sounds to me. Pukwudgies come from the Wampanoag legends. They are mischievous and they're troublemakers, and at some point when everything was being Christianized, like in the colonies and stuff, they were then described from being mischievous and troublemaking to being like little spirits from the devil. Yeah, it changed the way that they were described to people. Imagine that. They're associated with orbs as well. They're this like human-like creature, and they're found pretty much like all over the area that obviously the Wampanoag were living, but I guess there's reports of seeing them in other places. But they're said to be 2 to 3 feet tall, and their name means little man of the woods that vanishes. In 1990, a gentleman by the name of Bill Russo was out walking his Rottweiler Shepherd mix at night after work. And they usually did the same route every night, but tonight he was like, I feel like taking a different route. So he took a different route, and he came to this old water wheel with a large street light by it on the road. And all of a sudden, he realizes that his dog starts to shake. And he's looking at his dog like, what's wrong? His dog was fine this whole walk, and all of a sudden, there's something wrong. Well, a few moments later, he hears a high-pitched wail. And this high-pitched wail says, "E want you. Kia, kia. E want you. E want you." And suddenly, something walked on 2 feet into the middle of the circle of light underneath that street light. It was 3 to 4 feet tall. It had a pot belly, brown hair all over its body, even its face, no clothes. And its face kind of looked like a chipmunk almost. An odd creature. But it kept saying this thing over and over and was like beckoning him. "He want you. Kia, kia. He want you. Kia, kia." He said it wasn't threatening, but it was calling him like into this space. And he was understandably freaked out. He was so scared he turned around and he walked home as fast as he could with his dog. And what he believes this thing was trying to say to him was, "E want you," was, "We want you. Here. Here." And he never saw it again. But like, this guy doesn't seem crazy. Like, this is a normal guy. Like, what did he see? An alien? Were the Wampanoags dealing with extraterrestrials? Well, they may have been dealing with extraterrestrials because there are tons of UFO sightings, and they range. It's a lot of them from credible sources, but seeing lights in the sky, the whole 10 yards. There's tons of experiences that have been reported here, but here's the thing, you guys, and I'm really sorry, but I am not a huge UFO fan, so we're skipping this part. If you want to know more, check out the documentary, but I don't want to call that kind of energy towards me. UFO stuff, honestly, like, it's not even that I don't like it. It freaks me the F out, and I don't want to be abducted, quite honestly. So, you thank me later when you're not abducted because you weren't listening to a whole thing about UFOs. Fair. I got you. There's also reports of, like, a hitchhiking ghost hitchhiker, which, like, look, that's cool and all, but, like, I don't know, like, we're beyond that, aren't we? Ghost hitchhikers and, like, ghost truckers, like, I mean, I'm here for the scary stuff. I'm here for the really scary stuff, so let's get to the really scary stuff. We're going to now take our little selves down to Freetown Fall River State Forest. It is a 10,000-acre state preserve. Reports of paranormal activity, creatures, criminal activity, including devil cults, and actual proof of animal sacrifices. The evidence is pretty damning. It looks like these animal sacrifices were used in some sort of satanic ritual, unfortunately. There's a gentleman by the name of Alan Alves, and he is a retired police lieutenant. In the early 70s, he was a patrolman, and he used to find satanic graffiti on rocks. He would find bones in this forest, dead animals, proof of animal cruelty. He said there were rumors of homicide. There were chomos taking young children out into the woods, doing bad things, and leaving them there. Fall River also is the location of the Lizzie Borden murder trial. Over the course of 1979 to 1980, there were 3 deaths that were Carl Drew, who was a 24-year-old pimp, and Robin Murphy, 17-year-old, and also a pimp. Prostitution, apparently a very big thing in Fall River. Ultimately, like, what everyone says is like, oh, it said that Carl Drew and Robin Murphy had this cult in the woods. They had a shed in the woods that they used to carry out Satanic Cult Activity in, and a bunker was even found that we don't know if it's linked to them, but this bunker was found and it had some very disturbing items in it. And there were people that were sacrificed in the name of Satan in these woods. Like, one of these women that was brutally, savagely murdered, her head was removed, and they were even using it as a soccer ball, like kicking it around. Like, this is what is said about this forest. I had to dive deeper because I'm like, whoa, like, this is wild. How is this even possible? I watched a series on MGM Plus, and you can get it free for 7 days. I did their 7-day free trial to watch it. It's a 4-part series, an hour for each episode, and it's called Fall River, and it came out in 2021. And I have to give you a little bit of a warning. Some of that footage is very graphic, and I was not ready for it. So if you are sensitive to pictures that include crime scene photos, graphic crime scene photos, like, it might not be for you. So in this documentary, they interview people from the Fall River. They interview detectives. They interview investigators on the cases. They interview lawyers. They interview Carl Drew, the man that was, like, put in jail for killing. They interview Robin Murphy, who was also put in jail. Like, they get into this, they dig into this, and it's every time you think you know the truth, you get another curveball. They dive into every aspect of this case and actually ultimately end up uncovering some very interesting evidence. Our first victim, Doreen Levesque, she was found on October 19th of 1979 in New Bedford. Her body was found under bleachers at a high school, completely naked. There was a baseball bat that was put in her. She was tied up with fishing wire, and her head was crushed in with rocks. Doreen was only 17 years old, and Doreen was a transient. She was kind of like all over the place, and she dabbled in drugs, and she ended up ultimately prostituting in Fall River. She got mixed up with Carl Drew. It's believed that she was one of his prostitutes, potentially. We'll get into the next thing, but Karen Marsden is our next victim. Karen Marsden had a 2-year-old son. Karen Marsden was also 17. Karen Marsden was thought to be Robin's lover. And Karen Marsden made it very clear that she was terrified of Carl. Like, there are testimonies from her friends and even her baby's dad that said that she was terrified of him, and she told people, like, she actually ended up going to police, and she told them that she had seen Carl kill this girl behind the bleachers, and she was terrified that he was going to hurt her, so she was trying to get away. She said that she believed Carl was Satan. She believed he was Satan. She told her baby daddy in a story that she was with Carl and these other people. They took her to a hotel, and she was stripped naked, and the blood was poured all over her, and there was an upside down cross hung in the room, and they were chanting at her in different languages. Like, these are big accusations, and I'm sorry, I'm feeling a little queasy talking about. I don't like gory stuff, so I apologize. She even took investigators into the forest to show them places that they apparently used to frequent, and And she told the detectives, like, I want to go to St. Mary's Church. I need to talk to a priest. Like, I need to absolve myself of the things that I've seen and the sins that I've participated in. And she wanted to go to a church over being in protective custody. She's like, I need to go to a church. So the police took her to a church, and they watched her knock on the door. They watched her get let in. But you know what? Karen was dead within 2 hours of the police dropping her off. It's believed that she probably had to die because she was a witness to a murder. That's what they thought. There are a lot of different stories of what happened, and this is the most known story, but it is believed that a car full of people pulled up, and this car also had Carl and Robin in it. They drove Karen to the woods, and they beat her all along the way. Now, like, this story, just so you know, the story comes from Robin's testimony at court. This comes from her testimony when she was 17. Like, this is what she said in court. I don't know if I mentioned this, but Robin and Karen were actually lovers. So why? Like, they drove her, and Robin, like, was beating her, hitting her. Robin began pulling her hair out once they got to the woods, and Carl told her, she said, slit her throat. And Robin was so terrified of Carl that Robin slit her lover's throat in front of him. And then Robin says that Carl removed her head from the body and told everyone that they had to participate in some really messed up stuff that I'm not gonna say here. You can watch the documentary if you want to know, but it's terrible. It's really, 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 really grotesque. And then that's when Robin said that Carl kicked her head around like a soccer ball. It's believed then that Karen was killed because she witnessed the murder of Doreen Levesque. Now, as I said, Fall River, rough place to live. Prostitution was definitely happening there, and openly, like, police knew about it. Investigators were told by local prostitutes that Satan ruled the street. Allegedly, some of these cops and lieutenants were customers, according to some stories. So who was Carl True? Well, Carl True had a rough childhood, a very abusive childhood, and he left home at the age of 14, and he was known to be a very violent person. Prostitutes were scared AF of him, and he would use drugs to control them, as many pimps do. I say that as if I, like, know from you know, it's what you're told. But to this day, Carl maintains his innocence. He swears he's innocent, and he was put into prison for Karen's murder. Doreen's murder case still open to this day, and he's even, like, tried to appeal. So doesn't that make you go, why put in all this effort to say that you're innocent? Like, so many years, unless you believe it truly. But can you believe everyone that you meet? This guy clearly had street smarts, and which leads me just to believe that maybe lying is not that hard for him. I don't know. So who's Robin Murphy? Robin Murphy, also 17 at the time of all of this. What is with the number 17? Everyone's 17. She was trying to be a pimp at the same time as Carl in the area. They worked together, but just, like, out of necessity, but they didn't like each other. She also had a really rough childhood, and her parents didn't really care about her. And she was known to be very violent as well. She was put into jail for the murder of Karen as well, because she pled guilty. But at the age of 41, she came before the state parole board. Robin did. And she said, okay, are you ready? She said that she lied on the stand. And after listening to her testimony about how she said that she lied about this stuff, she said she made it all up. That they sacrificed this girl to Satan, and she made up the horrendous story of what they did to her in detail. And she said that when she was asked, like, why would you make up something like this? And she was like, well, because it was believable. She basically, like, she says that, like, she just wanted to, like, Carl was such a bad person and she just wanted to, like, put him in jail. Even if that meant her going to jail, which is fucking weird to me. And after listening to her testimony, she was granted parole in the early 2000s. And she was released, like, out in the world until early 2011. And the only reason she got put back in jail is because she got involved with someone else who was also on parole, which violated her parole and put her back in jail. What? You just admitted that you made shit up and you're still getting parole? What? I don't know, dude. Like, shouldn't we be investigating this at this point? Like, there's another guy named Andy Maltese, and he was a weirdo in Fall River, and he had been known to pick up young girls, and he actually even picked up Robin one time when she was 11, and S8'd her. And that comes into play later in the story. I'm sorry, this is like kind of all over the place, but there is a third murder that happened in between the other two. This girl was Barbara Raposa. She was 17. Her face was found smashed with cement blocks. She was in the forest. Her hands were tied together. She was found in the woods, frozen. This was Andy's girlfriend. Are you noticing a pattern here? Several women with their faces bashed in, tied up. If you get into this documentary, because I want to leave some stuff for you to find out, but what they allude to in this documentary is that perhaps someone else committed these murders. They think that someone else committed two of them, and there's someone that committed this third one. And the way that they tie this together is really wild. The basis of this whole thing is like something evil, something truly evil absolutely was going down in Fall River. And even if it wasn't actually for satanic ritual, although Alan House, our guy, he said he went undercover, not to with these people specifically, but he has gone undercover and has witnessed some of these satanic rituals. He says that they are real, but this particular case, the most famous one of all, maybe it's not true satanic rituals that were happening, but it has paved the way and set this energy into the forest and people that go in it, and has actually drawn people into the forest who are looking for a place to perform these rituals. This story alone, this 17-year-old girl had supposedly made up, unknowingly drew other people there, because there are reports of, like, there was one terrible report of like 12 baby calves that were all slaughtered and their blood was missing, so their blood was taken for sacrifice, and just tons of dead animals in this forest. But Alan House believes that the whole term satanic panic, that maybe people were trying to downplay it, perhaps because it needed to be suppressed, and he believed it was being suppressed by the government because a lot more important people were involved in it. And I'm not ready to go down that wormhole, but I'm sure you know where that leads. I'm going to leave that up to you to decide. So things continued in this forest long after. Were they legit things, or was it crazy kids? Like, what else happened there? In the late 1980s, grave robbing was a huge issue. Bodies were dug up, skulls were removed. The Freetown Cemetery has a mausoleum that was broken into, and these boys removed the body of a female from the crypt, and they removed her head still fucking weird. It doesn't take it back. Sorry. There was a pet cemetery there, and in the 80s, it was also shut down because people were digging up animal remains to use for rituals. That would piss me off if I went to try to, like, bury my dog or something, and, like, you go back and Fluffy's not there. Oh, I would. Let's talk about the underground bunker. This hunter was walking through the woods, and this was in the 90s, and he came across this tarp, and when he went to look at it closer, like, he almost didn't even see it. It was covered by leaves and stuff. But this blue tarp, when he went to remove it to investigate it, this blue tarp was covering an underground bunker. He went into the bunker. What was in there? There were dolls in there with their heads cut off and the eyes gouged out. There was a small chair that was carved out of a piece of wood, and it was a chair so small it would have been the size for like a toddler to sit in, and had bindings attached to it, and there was child's clothing in there. He, of course, reported it to the police, and they investigated, but there was not enough evidence in there to say maybe who had been there or what they were doing there. So it's believed that it had something to do with child abduction, or perhaps abuse. Like, there just wasn't enough evidence to trace it back to any individual group. Now, is that bunker still there? No, it's been demolished. There are a few guys that have found the actual location, and you can tell from the pictures that are online, like, this clearly was it, and there are still some satanic, like, you can find, like, little weird, like, drawings and stuff, but it's like whether it really was from the bunker or whether it was, like, from someone that's just come along, it's hard to kind of tell. Also, another hunter found another little, like, shack thing about 2.5 miles into the woods, and in this shack there were signs of satanic worship. It was about the size of a prison cell. Collapsed remains were found in 2012, but yeah, it's not recognizable. Just to make it clear though, there are no confirmed human victims of satanic human sacrifice that have been found within the triangle. Have people died in it? Yes, but it has not been confirmedly linked to satanic rituals, so I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I'm here to bring the facts. Something else that is just, like, a little odd, but in 1978, before our other three gals had died, a girl went missing from Ranham, and she was found in the Freetown State Forest, about 18 miles away from her home. Her name was Mary Lou Aruda, and she was 15 years old, and this poor girl's remains were found tied to a tree in the middle of the forest, and her body was tied to the tree, but her head was not attached to her body. It was found nearby, which makes me wonder. You gotta watch that documentary, but I would be interested to know if you think, after listening to this, if it could be tied to that, because the gentleman that was put in jail for her death had committed some weird stuff beforehand that he went to jail for. This guy, James Gator, and they ended up convicting him then for this murder, but he maintains his innocence for this. He says he did the first thing he served time for, but he said, I did not actually commit this crime. So watch the documentary. I'd be interested to see what you think. Or something else that is within the triangle is the Taunton State Hospital. The Taunton State Hospital opened in 1854, and it was originally known as the Lunatic Hospital at Taunton. Well, allegedly, parts of this hospital were also used by satanic cults during the 1960s and 70s. There are terrifying talks of patients being used for anything from simple rituals to sacrifices that supposedly the nurses and doctors were said to have taken patients down into the basement to perform these rituals, like they were in on it. There are a lot of skeptics that deny it, but think about it, like, how easy would it have been if you needed someone to sacrifice to make someone from the loony bin just disappear, especially if they didn't have any family. So most of the stories of the hauntings at Taunton from the basement. People report feeling uneasy, sick, feeling that unexplained terror. The workers who demolished the building reported the basement as one of the places that gave them, like, the worst feelings. There's also these unexplained markings on the walls. These symbols and shapes and words would appear, and when they would be, like, cleaned off, they would reappear, even in